I think I have a bonding problem with my Seacock. Let me show you this. My name is Rick. I got my sea legs when I was in the Coast Guard, and I commanded a boat much like this one. Today, I take my small sailboat on coastal passages in search of adventure. In this season, I'm heading south from Banderas Bay with the intention of returning to the Caribbean Sea via the Panama Canal. Living the pirate life. Yeah, check this out. Yeah, I can't figure out why anyone would cap a bonding wire like this. And you know, this is the primary Seacock, the one that feeds cooling water to the engine. Well, I've been aware of it for some time, so I'm not without fault here, that's for sure. Well, I don't know what they did, but I couldn't twist that nut off, so I'm cutting it. And with the end of the bonding wire ready to go, I get my trusty screwdriver nut thingy. Yeah, I'm loosening this hose clamp. Okay. You can see these other cables that are in here. They are highly corroded, so the grounding's not going to be that great. So I snipped and stripped the other two wires, and right here I'm sanding down the base of that Seacock a little bit. I want to get a good connection. The idea behind improving these electrical connections is that Frog's Leap is better able to dissipate stray electrical currents into the sea and thereby guarding against galvanic corrosion. So when it's all said and done, this is a measure aimed at protecting the watertight integrity of the hull. And with the electrical connections renewed, I'm using a zip tie to keep the connections close to the Seacock. Wow, when I have the energy, I got to take advantage of it, because when the heat comes, it's really hard. That humidity comes in, it's hard to get anything done. And I want to show you this. Yeah, so this is on the Traveler. Take a look at this. You see how much this wheel is moving in here? It's really, really old. And you can also see, if I get right down on it, like there's all kinds of gap in there. This is I'm sure this is a 30-year-old block right here. I'm gonna go ahead and grab a screwdriver and unscrew this thing and take it over and see what they have over at this chandlery. Rained all night. Water comes down off the mountains, gets in the marina, makes it all brown like this. Happens every time it rains down here. But I think I just want to take a moment and enjoy this really light drizzle of rain. And it's just enough to keep the humidity at bay a little bit. It's nice. This is the plate, right, that sits. So if the Traveler bar runs along this way, the Traveler line comes out here, right? And then this is aft. This bolts onto the Traveler bar, and you can see it's a little bent. Yeah, I might have that redone a little thicker. I mean, it's perfectly fine this way, don't get me wrong, but you know, looking at opportunities to incrementally improve. And then this is the cheek block that gets screwed down onto it. Now, it's a lot of little bits, and you know how I feel about little bits. Look at all these little bits. are all the little bits I can lose. The way this cheek block works is it gets screwed down like this. This would be on the bottom. This sheave, right, gets set right here, and then you drop this little sleeve in it like that. You've got this like spacer. Put the little sleeve in there like that too, and then that goes right here. And then this goes on top. Put a little beauty ring on it. This screw and this screw get screwed down. Now this is on top of here, see? Holds it all onto that traveler bar. You can see how much space there is, how much play there is on those bearings. Just a ton. And so what ends up happening is when this sheave will pivot, you see? And when it pivots, when I'm pulling on that traveler line, it feels like there are brief moments of friction followed by the friction giving, you know, and it just doesn't feel smooth. It should feel smooth with this. This isn't the only point of friction, but I thought, okay, I'll start knocking out points of friction. Try to figure out what's going on, right? So I'm in the process. This is experimentation. You can always throw money at the problem, right? But I think what's kind of fun too is trying to be creative and seeing what you can do. These little ball bearings that are in there, it's surprising to me that they're not coming out yet. They're close though. I went over to the local chandlery. Not surprisingly, they didn't have a cheek block, you know, that I could just bolt in. That wasn't going to happen. So I had to get creative. What I realized was in this sandwich way, right? The way everything gets kind of clamped down like that. If I could find a different one of these and just put it in there, even if it was just temporarily. So I look at like, okay, if I got rid of this, what would be the swap? Maybe I'd be swapping out, you know, 20 little bits for 6 little bits. I would make that swap. You know, walking around these chandleries with a little creative spark in your mind, not being dead set on this is the brand, this is what it must, absolutely must be, allowing yourself to be creative. Here's what I came up with. They had one of these. Actually, they had 2. I got 2. It's one of these frictionless deals. What I did was I was like, okay, I wonder, you know, if I put these. So there's a diameter difference. It's pretty substantial. So that's not great. It's not ideal. And this one's a little bigger. I don't know. It's a Harkin 20 is what it says. So if I cared enough, I'd look it up. No, I don't care that much because the whole point for me is let's be creative. So here's my plan. I want to show you this. This little support for the back, and then this sleeve went through it. All right, so it was like this, and it supported the back end. Ooh, I see you. Well, look at this. If I take this thing, because this is a big hole. This is the problem. This hole is so big, this particular cheek block, its purpose is to line up the traveler line such that it will go right through that little cam cleat perfectly, right? So this can't be this big if I'm were to swap it out, but check this out. Here's the coolest thing. This little spacer that came with that, look at this. Look at that. I mean, it's almost perfect. Look at there's a little gap. There it is. You can hardly see it. There a little bit. So that's really cool because now I can rebuild those cheek blocks using this instead of that thing with the ball bearings. I wish the radius was a little bit better. You know, I showed that earlier. You can see the radius is better on the old sheave. And I think the tighter the radius, the more friction you're going to create. So I'm going to go ahead and rebuild it with this, and we'll see how I like it this season. Do I rebuild the rest of them this way, or do I get new cheek blocks? I don't know. I'm willing to experiment, though, for the public good. Well, I think most people do the experimentation thing, right? Of course. So for the rebuild, we're not going to use this one, right? I'm going to use this one. So it's going to look like this. I drop this right here, put the spacer in, put the other spacer in, and then put this spacer in, and then this sits on it like this. The beauty ring, baby. These screws will hold it down, just like before on here. For real-time updates, check out Sailing Frogs Leap on Instagram.